Hi, my name is Nick Snarr. I'm a freshman, and today I'm going to do my how-to speech on how to play basketball. I'm sure a majority of people are familiar with the basics or have probably played the game before or seen it on TV, but just in case, I'm going to go over some of the basic rules and background information and stuff like that. Basketball, personally, is probably like my favorite sport. I love to play it, love to watch it, and yeah, so let me go dive into some of the background. So the history of basketball began with the invention, or was invented in 1891 in Springfield, Massachusetts, by a guy named James Naismith. He was a PE teacher, and he was looking for a sport that would be less physically, less physical contact, more safe for his students to play than such as, hockey, football. And he was also looking for a good indoor sport because around the time he was coming up with basketball, it was winter time, so it was cold outside, so they needed a sport to come play inside. So some of the first game of basketball, like the way they looked, much different from today's game. There was 9 people on the side compared to 5 in today's game. Basketball wasn't a thing yet, so there wasn't a basketball. You had to use a soccer ball that they would pass back and forth, and there was also no basket, so they had to get a literal peach basket, which is where the name comes from, and they had to, after every time someone scored, somebody had to go get the ball out so that there's nowhere for the ball to go through. And this sport quickly started spreading through YMCA all across the nation. A whole bunch of schools started to pick it up, and that's how it just quickly gained popularity. So that was what it started out as, and a look at today's game, completely different. Now we have 5 people aside. There are 4 quarters, or it depends on where, if you look at a NBA, the National Basketball Association, they have 4 12-minute quarters. Each side has 2 netted hoops where you shoot the ball, and if you make it, it just goes through, goes right back down, and you just grab the ball. And now the game is widely popular amongst not only the United States, but the entire world. So, let's take a look at a basketball court. So, basketball court is a rectangle shape with 2 halves, 2 sides that are completely the same. So, looking at one side of a basketball or a court, you have a kind of half circle arch that's against the baseline, which is the very end of the 2 rectangles, the 2 baselines. Then there's the 2 sidelines, and this sort of arch on each side that's called the 3-point line. And inside the arch, there's a little sort of rectangle that goes into a circle. So there's like the arch, there's a little rectangle and a little circle on the top. And inside that's called the foul line. So the foul line is where if you get go up for a shot and somebody physically hits you, you would get called for a foul, and you would get 2 free shots with nobody guarding you. And going back to the large line that's kind of like a half circle, the 3-point line, in a game you can shoot behind that and get 3 points, unlike a regular basket anywhere else would be 2 points. And going back to free throws real quick, free throws, if you make one, each are 1 point, and you can miss both and get nothing, make both and get 2, or, make one, miss one, 1. So, okay. And a half court, that's called the half court line. That's where the game starts. They'll have something called the tip-off, where typically the tallest players will jump and try to hit the ball towards their own side to gain possession of the ball first. All right. Okay, so some of the basic rules. Dribbling. So in basketball, you always have to be constantly dribbling the ball up and down. You can't pick up the ball. You can once, but once you pick up the ball, you can't put the ball back down, or that's considered a double dribble, and the other team gets the ball. Your hand must stay on top of the ball at all times. So I can't do that and sort of like carry it. That's what's called carrying. If you sort of like hold on to the ball and do these like long dribbles in between steps, you can't do that. And you also must stay in bounds. So we just talked about the lines. You can't go out of bounds, or otherwise the other team gets the ball. All right. Positions. So there are 5 positions in basketball. The point guard many times the shortest, not always. In today's game, there's a lot of taller players that will play. Their main, they completely run the offense. That's their main position. That's like their job. They'll start bringing the ball up the court, and they have a set of options. Either try to score themselves, but first and foremost, they need to be looking for their teammates who are moving off the ball, who don't have the ball, who are just moving around trying to get open. Second position is the shooting guard. He's there to kind of assist the point guard on the inbound, and after that, he's looking to get open. Typically, he stays outside the 3-point line. I mean, of course, sometimes he'll drive in, but those positions are, that's usually more for some of the taller players, which I'm about to get into. Third is the small forward. He also kind of stays outside the 3-point line or the perimeter. And small forwards, not always, might be kind of right in the middle of the height range. Like a lot of times, the order I'm going is sort of shortest to smallest, but it's not always like that. Small forwards are often good shooters, not always. They're sort of like they have the all-around talent because they're sort of a combo of a guard, but maybe not as good as a guard, but they're bigger, so they can get rebounds and go down low sometimes if they need to. Okay, so the next forward position is called power forward, like a small forward, but often bigger. Maybe a lot more times he's going to be down low. It's what's called the post, which is the area, the sort of square that I was talking about inside the 3-point line. It's called the paint. Or the post is right under the basket. They're going to be in that area, moving around. They can, of course, go out to the 3-point line sometimes, but more often than not, they're going to see them down low on offense and defense, and I'll get into that. And then last is the center, almost always the tallest person on the court. You're always going to almost always see them, not always, there's always exceptions, but you're typically going to see them down under the basket, trying to get points down there and trying to get rebounds. And that's really key for getting wins in basketball, rebounds. Okay, so offense. So when your team has the ball, that's called offense, just like any other sport. Basketball is a team sport, meaning you can't win games if you just have one player who's being a ball hog, being selfish and stuff like that. You got to get everybody the ball. So, and that you want to constantly move it around. Good ball movement is key to winning any game and just having a good overall team. And yeah, you're just trying to get a good scoring opportunity. And there's, many places you can score from the court. Like I mentioned before, down low. Anywhere outside of the 3-point line is a 3. Down low, 2, anything inside there. Or even like a mid-range shot, that's still 2 points. So, all right. Shooting. So shooting basketball is very important, and it's not as easy as some people think. You're not just trying to toss it up there. It's important to hold your hands in the right place. So typically, when people are being taught to shoot, they'll put their arm in sort of an L position to support the ball. Have your fingers spread out, and the ball will go right here, and your left hand is here for support. You don't want to use too much of your left hand. You want your dominant hand. I'm right-handed, so I'm using my right hand. Keep that a good L shape. Keep the ball right here. And then you want to use your legs and sort of squat down. And then you want to go up and flick your wrist. It's important to follow through. So that's key for good basketball shots. Look at some NBA players. Some NBA players don't even have a good shot. The majority of them do, like in really good form, but some get away with having kind of a weird shot. So you'll see that sometimes. Like I mentioned before, 3-point line. Your best shooters are going to be guys who can stay out there. Look at, I'm sure most people have heard of Steph Curry and stuff. Stand behind the 3-point line and could just make it all day. I already went over free throws. That's also very important to get a good sort of like routine where you're used to, and you can always just knock them down every time because it's a free shot. No one's going to guard you. All right, so defense. Defense, opposite of offense, you're defending. There's 2 main kinds of defense positions I want to go over. Most commonly seen and almost always in the NBA, you're going to see man-to-man, which is just 5 players on the court are going to guard the opposite person who's the same position as them, usually, not always. You could switch it up. And you'll see that most often in NBA. And overall, that's probably the most common thing. Just pick up a guy, one guy on one. So yeah. But another very common thing used, maybe not as much in the NBA or even college, is called zone, where players will stand in a specific place. So, like I said with the positions earlier, like a center is going to be down low. Same thing on defense. Like he's going to be down low because he's the biggest guy. And if you see a guy going towards the basket, you want your biggest guy there to put his hands up and make it hard to score. You don't want to put your smallest guy there get killed by some big center, right? So yeah, and also on defense, off the ball movement is very important. So even if your player doesn't have the ball, you want to make sure you're in front of him so that he can't quickly get to the basket, or you also don't want to leave him open to get an open shot. So you always want to, on man-to-man, you always want to stick with him, or in zone, you always want to make sure anybody who's in your area that you have to guard, you want to make sure they can't get, anything easy. And last thing on defense is position. So defensive position is very important. You can't just kind of stand there. It's what you want to do is get squat down, sort of like you're sitting down in a chair. Keep your arms spread out wide as you can, and keep your legs a little bit spread. And you want to be able to shuffle back and forth to be as big as possible, almost like a moving wall. So it's going to be just that much harder for your defender to get by you. All right, and that's it.